Good afternoon and welcome back to the channel. Yes, in this video, we're going to listen to the madman that is Graeme Souness. You've got to remember, Graeme Souness is the manager who was the manager of Rangers at a time where he was able to get English players. Now, the reason he was able to get English players, what a lot of Rangers fans seem to forget about, and the only reason that they got these English players is English players were banned from playing in Europe. All English teams were banned from playing in Europe at that time, so they got all these English players to come to Rangers because they wanted to play in Europe, and they couldn't play for an English team in Europe because the English were banned for violence, violent conduct, fighting back in the day, casual era. Nothing like the ultras of today's football. That they probably make the modern ultras look like lightweights. Anyway, let's listen to the madman that is Graeme Souness having a bit of a meltdown, talking about the gap.
Only works out.
There are those, Graeme,
and can I just finish
there's
by
a positive gulf.
There's a gulf there. Yeah, they're ahead of Rangers. How do you expect me to answer this question? But I'm trying to give you some facts to back up my thinking.
Right, you're saying there's not a lot between the two
There
sides.
isn't a lot. There is not a lot, but for me, they have better strikers. I don't see a gulf in the quality of football they play. I think they're better goal getters, which ultimately does decide games.
Is that not what wins you championships then, Graeme? So there isn't a gulf. There isn't a gap.
I look at if we go and win next week at Hampden Park, there's 3 trophies to win at Scotland. They would win 2 out of the 3. But of course, the most important one is the league.
Yes, it is. And that pot of gold, yes, the pot of gold that comes with it is entry straight into the Champions League, and that's all that matters. When it goes back history, when people look at history of the years of the league, nobody really bothers about cup wins. It only matters if you do like doubles and trebles and you win the league. When it comes to it, it's all about winning the league. You know, the cups are good, trebles are fantastic, and we've won quite a lot of them, Graeme, over the last few years. And last night was the Celtic Player of the Year's Awards. 20 years of it in its current format, and it's been 20 years of pretty much domination. You've got to remember, he was last Rangers manager about 30 years ago.
That says more about you.
And Celtic are on course for their 12th title in 13 seasons.
That's
Boom! Oh, Jim White just bitch slapped up there.
Hurts. Of course that hurts.
Oh, of course it hurts.
I'd also like to tell you that, the new manager, I think, has done a fabulous job. He has been there for, 6 months, whatever it is.
Here's a fact before Graeme goes into it. He's played the same number of games as Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. He's played the same number of games as Michael Beale. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has actually scored and had more points than the previous 2 managers. Michael Beale had more points than the current Rangers manager. But the meltdown goes on as he talks about how there isn't a gap between his beloved...
He signed 3 players, 2 on loan. He spent 4.3 million on Diamondi. He spent 4 million quid to change things. I'm hoping this window, the club somehow find a Josh to support him, and he can get some of the players in that he knows and trusts, and it will make the difference in the league next year.
Wait a minute. Is he admitting that the Rangers are skint? Is he admitting Rangers are skint? He wonder if he hopes that they'll be able to get the money.
But I would not be critical of the manager. I wouldn't be critical of the players right now.
Well, the fans are. The fans are calling them serial losers.
I think he's getting a tune out of those players. They've slipped up badly at Ross County, slipped up badly at Dundee, and that's why it all came down to Saturday's game that they lost.
But that's when he needed to get a tune out of them. At Ross County.
I wouldn't, Jim. You can ask me any guys you want. I will not be critical of the manager because I think he's done a good job.
Well, listen,
and it could still end up with 2 trophies.
I'm not criticising him. But I mean, Rangers fans.
No, you wanted me to criticise him, and I won't.
I think Rangers fans have got their heads in their hands at the moment, Graeme.
Got their heads in their hands.
Even though there's a cup final coming up. Celtic on course for their 12th title in 13 seasons. This is an unrecognisable Rangers to
Jim,
you,
I've
surely.
answered the question. I won't go and be critical of him.
Let's listen to Clement. It was asked post-match. Is the title race now over?
It's of course extremely difficult. We're not naive, but it's not about that. It's about showing these next 2 games and then in the cup final to show quality and to show reaction after disappointment to lose here, and not that we didn't take our chances well enough, that we made wrong decisions, and to react. In football, it's always about reacting after disappointment. So we
So they're not good enough, basically.
need to react fast against Dundee.
Said, and you weren't listening.
I was.
At my very first press conference, I was asked about the Old Firm games, how much you have to win them. I said, and this is what you're mistaken, I said, at the Old Firm games, I don't care. This is my first press conference. I don't care if we lose them all, as long as we win the league. And I quickly realised that wasn't the case.
What I said in the conversation
that's what I said in my very first press
What I
conference.
said in the conversation the last time we discussed the Old Firm was, if you don't get outcomes against the Old Firm team, surely you can't win the league.
No,
you're
you
taking
can't.
1 point out of 12.
1
And you
point
have to
out
look
of
at
12.
Philippe Clement, who I've been a great admirer of. But when it comes to the business end of the season, if this was on the other foot, and this was a new Celtic manager, and Celtic had the league in their hands with a game in hand, and they go and get done by
This
Ross
is
County and
rigid.
Dundee and don't take a point off the opposition, he would have something to say about the Celtic manager.
Yep.
He would have still been saying to himself, I need to strengthen there. I'm not happy with him. He's not good enough. That doesn't change.
But that's the
'Cause you
nature.
So he's talking about the Rangers team are shite now. Make up your mind, Graham. Are they good or are they bad? You just said a minute ago you weren't going to criticise them. Now you're criticising
a
them.
good result or a bad
But that's
result.
Would you
He
agree
will-
with Simon Graham that neither side is particularly good at the moment?
Well, I think there's a factor for. I think it's a very simple reason for that. Rangers got £3 million. I think I'm correct in saying £3 million from television last year, and Bournemouth got over 100 million.
What's that to do with it? What the fuck is that to do with it? What's that to do with beating Rangers, beating Celtic? What is that to do with? Seriously, the man's lost. He's done. He's nothing. He's comparing Rangers to the income of English football.
Bournemouth,
But when
Where
they
I
defeat Celtic win.
where I live.
Celtic have
So
won
no,
3
I'm answering
and
one
drawn
question
1.
at a time. You asked me, is Simon correct in saying the standard's not great? That is a fact.
But
It's not.
Right, you could say that. You don't hear Motherwell and Aberdeen and Hibs and Hearts going, well, wait a minute. Bournemouth get 100 million down south. Look what we get. We only get 500,000.
It's
but-
not.
but with respect,
we would
Graham,
all want it to be.
But with respect, Graham, Rangers and Celtic's turnover, granted, compared to... Hang on, I haven't finished.
But it's-
Compared to,
it's-
hang on,
you're-
I haven't
you're
finished,
stating
Graham.
the bleeding
I haven't
obvious.
finished yet. And insofar as comparing it to Bournemouth and the 110 million quid they get, but when you put Rangers and Celtic, they get 80, 90 million pounds turnover
Yes.
against the Benelux teams in the Champions League. They still come up short, and their turnovers aren't bigger,
Yep.
and their revenues aren't bigger.
What do you mean they come up short? Rangers got to have a European final last year.
That was the last year.
In when I'm talking about in the recent times, in the last, in the
How
last
recent
couple
is
of
a year
years.
ago?
Yeah,
How
no,
recent is
18
a year
months,
ago?
2 years ago. 2 years ago.
How recent are we talking about? Last
2 years
week?
ago. What we're talking about now.
Yeah, you're talking about Celtic in the Champions League, where they're in against
we
the
live
very
in the times
best.
of now, right? And I'm talking about Rangers. I'm not actually focusing particularly on Rangers. I'm focusing on both of them.
No, I think
because
you're referring more to Celtic.
I'm looking at both of them and saying both of those sides. Celtic's winning of the league, which is a
That's right, because Rangers, when they were in the Champions League, Graham, were historically the worst ever team in the Champions League. And that's fact. He's admitting that bit, isn't he? He is admitting. Yes, Rangers did get to a European final back a few years ago, but it was in the Europa Cup. When Rangers did get into the Champions League the following year, after the COVID season, when they won the league, they fucked it, didn't they? They turned out to be the worst. And there's headlines. Go and Google the headlines. The worst ever team to have participated in the Champions League ever.
the validation of Brendan Rodgers is primarily because they're the better of the bad bunch. And
If they were, I can't see it happening, but if they were down here, instead of starting the
here
Championship,
it
it will be
goes.
a matter of time before they got out of that. And then we started to get, then you start to get the kind of money that's thrown around down here.
But it's not going to happen.
See, now he's on pipe dream stuff. He's smoking crack pipes. He's done his nothing. He's now wanting them to move down to England.
agreed.
It won't happen.
Agreed.
It's not going to happen.
In a very short period of time, they'll both be challenging.
And the fact,
Now, Man City, but they're not going to win the European Cup.
what happens if they don't win it? Is Clement under pressure going into next season?
You're always under pressure. You're only ever one game away
No,
from
but
being under
specifically
pressure.
him.
No, I come back to it. It's not his team. And I think the time to judge him would be a year from now.
Oh, wait a minute. It's not his team. It's not his club. It's somebody else's team. It's somebody else's club. Oh, fuck, is that 2012 all over again? I'm getting so confused.
If he gets that far, and I hope he does, because I think he's doing a good job there.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jim. Yes, I've been on before. I'm a big fan of the show and a big Celtic fan as well. So
this'll be good.
Yeah, a couple of points I wanted to make was I disagree with what Graeme was saying earlier about there not being much between the teams, and what Simon was saying about the teams not being up to mustard, really. Basically, I think Celtic have got Rangers on toast. They've got their number, and just from a psychological aspect, until Rangers accept that is the case and that they are second best, which they'll never do, because I wouldn't do it if the roles were reversed. That it won't change then, so I don't see it changing anytime soon. And as far as Celtic not being good, we've been ridiculously complacent this season and a bit pedestrian at times.
Yes,
in
definitely.
spells, and that's what's caused it. The only reason Rangers even had a sniff at this title is because we let it slip.
Exactly.
Midway through, just after Clement came in, we had a big sort of commanding lead, and then we got a bit complacent, and then Rangers overtook us, and then we wheeled them straight back in again and shot past them as we always do.
Yes.
So you think quite simply Celtic have got Rangers' number? It's as simple as that.
Yep.
Ewan's got a point, Graeme, when it seems to come to the bit when
Rangers
are called upon to do it against Celtic, they can't do it.
Yep.
They can't do it
this year. They're not a mile in front. They're 6 points in front.
This year. Oh, how many times have we won the league in the last 13 years?
That's not suggesting they've run away with the league. 6 points. I think Rangers will point to the game. Listen, at the end of the season, when you win...
At the end of the season, you look back and Celtic will be champions. Again. Simple. Nobody cares about second.
Or you don't win it. They always look... As a player, as a supporter, you look back, only if we'd won that one, only if we'd won that one.
But Celtic can do that. Celtic can say, if only we'd beat Hearts in December, if only we never dropped those 6 points in December, it would have been 12 points ahead in the league.
Rangers slipped up against Dundee,
Rangers, though.
and they also slipped up against Ross County. But Celtic could point to the same games they dropped. I come back to it. If you win the league, it means you're the best team that year.
By comparison of Rangers and Celtic, Rangers took one. Put everything aside. They took 1 point off Celtic.
I know. So they deserve.
Celtic
1
are
point.
miles away from them.
1 point.
Yeah, I know.
But you not concede though. These games were the crucial ones because Celtic have won 3 and drawn 1. So
Celtic and Rangers, because the only team you're comparing Celtic and Rangers to are Celtic and Rangers. Not
points. The last 3 games, I can't even remember what the first one was. But it's been 3-3, 2-1, 2-1, and the 2-2-1s were when Rangers went to 10 men. Is that suggesting they're miles apart?
It means you got beaten.
If it's not the 6 points you're gauging it by, then gauge it on the head-to-head.
let's ask Jason, who's a big Rangers fan.
It's not like a team they're bashing them up.
Basically gave the league to Celtic at the end of it because they 2 games were the costly ones. We should be sitting ahead of Celtic right now. But after watching that Saturday game, especially with Lundstrom, costing us that game, we're coming in with a tackle. That tackle that he did, actually, sorry, Graeme, but that actually reminded me back in the day when you were a manager with the tackles that you get, players got away with back in the 80s and the 90s, So, see for me, unless we have to change the defence, Clement, I can't blame Clement because he's not had his own team. Judge him on next season, because as I say, he gets in the players and, anything can happen to win the league.
Rangers conceded less goals than Celtic.
No, but that's what I'm saying. The 2 teams are actually worse.
The facts are the facts. Celtic are on course for their 12th title in 13 seasons.
No. We're talking about this year. As Simon pointed out earlier, some of those years Rangers weren't even in the Premier League. So please tell me, both of you.
Oh, that's right, because Rangers got liquidated, Graeme, didn't they? They got liquidated for not paying the taxman and other debts. They never paid the face painter, and they died. That's right, isn't it? When a club goes into liquidation, it ceased to exist. But somehow they think it's the club that didn't die. The company died. Oh, that's a dark, dark moment. So he's now admitting that Rangers weren't in the league because they were liquidated.
Yeah.
What criteria are you working with when you say Rangers are are miles
Dead.
behind Celtic.
At one
This
point you're saying they haven't been bashed up 5-1 in games, right? And you would
Okay,
expect.
you don't just pass that off. That is a fact.
I'm about to give you an answer.
That is
to your
a
question.
fact.
They took 1 point out of 12.
1 point out of
That
12.
to me
That's-
defines it. Now your
Yep.
argument would be, well, I'll nuance that.
Well,
Rangers
you haven't
never got
nuanced
beat.
anything.
No, but
These
hang
are
on. You're-
facts,
in the
Simon.
conversation we just had a moment ago,
Stay with us, John.
Rangers didn't get bashed up by Celtic in any of the games.
No.
Is your argument?
And they've lost the league by 6 points.
Right.
So
And they've only managed to take 1 point off of Celtic this season.
would that suggest to anyone with the
But the only comparison,
remotest bit of
but
common
Graeme,
sense, that is not an enormous margin.
we're not talking
That
about
would
we're not
suggest that
talking
these
about
two
them running
teams
away with the
are
league.
not far away
Both
from each other.
Celtic and Rangers are better than the rest of the dross that's in that league. So the only comparison is between Celtic and Rangers.
No,
Forget
it's
what's
not the only
happening.
comparison.
It
It's
is,
not the only
Graeme.
comparison.
It
So you're
The
suggesting every other
comparison
game
is
is just a
Celtic
given.
and
They just win easily the other
No,
games.
yeah,
That is not the case.
I am, because look at
That
the
is
points
not
total.
the case.
Look
That
at the
is
points
not the
totals.
case.
Look at the points totals.
That is not the case.
And look at the reality. You were right to suggest, because Rangers only come back into the SPFL in 16-17, so we can't say 13 seasons. We can only say 8.
Right.
8 seasons.
8 seasons, right?
Right.
So they've won one title out of the last 8, which is a more fair analysis. But we have to define the result being they took 1 point out of 12. And how many points Celtic win the league is irrelevant.
John, don't wear your Celtic shirt when you give me this answer. But you've been good enough to come on, mate. Got a miss on that one. John, thank you for that.
Of anyone else. That is a football person's opinion on it. That would be their take on it. Not a journalist, not a supporter, and not you two.
But that's a wonderful observation. But if any other league...
It's not what, it's a fact.
No, it's your version of a fact.
It's a
right?
fact.
It's your version
I've
of a
just
fact.
told you, get any football person in here and ask them that same
What do you
question.
mean football person?
Someone who's been involved in football professionally.
Or someone who's played?
Manager, someone who's involved professionally.
You see, what I found for football people, in my experience of football, having employed lots of them and owned a football club for 10 years, is some of the most disingenuous, divisive, excuse-orientated people are football people.
Disingenuous. This is a bleeding fact.
It's a massive opinion.
It's a fact.
If you look at any other league,
It is a fact.
Graeme, if you look at any other league besides the Scottish Premier League, right, it's a 2-horse race. So the only thing you're comparing one another to is Celtic Rangers.
We have spent half an hour talking about
so the reality-
2-horse races, 6 points.
Well, it is
2-1, 2-1, 3-3. I can't even tell you the result.
But you
of the first
disagree.
often.
But what you are is your word isn't the law. You're not Judge Dredd, right?
no,
you don't get to define what people think because you kicked a bloody
Try and
ball.
listen to this. I know you were in the game briefly.
10 years is a
You
fair
were
amount of
you were in
time.
the game briefly.
10 years is a fair amount of
Let
time.
me explain to you how football people, professional football, would view this. Rangers are not
Shite.
a mile behind. There's not an enormous gulf. The results tell you that, and the 6-point gap tell you that. They are not a million miles away from them.
Oh, they're not a million miles away, but they are just to the other side of the city. And Graeme has admitted that they were in the lower league because they went into liquidation and died. That's the meltdown of the one and only Graeme Souness today. Oh, it's going to get better this week, isn't it? It's going to get better. It's just going to keep on going. It's the gift that has kept giving since 2012. Yes, 2012, when the club that was formerly known as the Rangers went into liquidation and died and ceased to exist and was voted back into the third tier, voted into it rather than having to start all over again, like third Lanark or Gretna. But yes, Graeme Souness did have one there, didn't he?